So welcome on this day of the Master. It's a special day, March 24th. Master M said that this is his day. So this is the day that we will focus our awareness and our concentration on what it means to celebrate the day of the Master. And hopefully it will elevate our consciousness and our awareness and give us perhaps a momentary contact with these great beings. This morning, I'm talking about taking it apart, actually, a poem written by Rumi, The Soul and Its Treasures. So let us begin. He wrote, "Merge yourself in the community and know the joy of the soul. Enter the streets of ruin and those who drink to the dregs. Empty the glass of your desires so that you are not disgraced." So I'm going to read this again. Merge yourself in the community and know the joy of the soul. And then he says something just the opposite of that, meaning that we have a choice. He said, or enter the street of ruin with those who drink to the dregs. And in giving us that choice, he says, here's the instruction so that we make the better choice. Empty the glass of your desires so that you are not disgraced. So here Rumi is telling us to engage in selfless service. Empty the glass of your desire. Interesting, isn't it? To enter the path and engage in selfless service. And by so doing, we will experience the joy of the soul. To merge in the community means to merge with the heart of humanity, with the heart of the group, with the heart of your nation, your country, your community, wherever you are, whatever environment that you find yourself in, merge yourself into the heart of that environment. I don't think that's so easy to do today. That means that we need to be very cognizant of the environment that we are in. That's the first thing. The next thing is that we must remove ourselves from critical thinking. When we put ourselves in a situation where we are separating ourselves, we make ourselves an individual separate from the community that we are supposedly merging ourselves into that heart, and we're using a critical mind, that means that there's a division, there's a separation already taking place. Women will look at other women and the clothes they're wearing and, and the same thing with the men. Well, I guess you look at one another's ties, I don't know, or not. And then we look at one another's culture, and it's either pleasing to us or not. There's a phrase, it's called be here now, or be in the moment. With this experience that I've had the last few weeks of not only losing my own son, but a very, very dear friend, and it's made me more vulnerable. It's made me more understanding. It's made me, interestingly enough, compassionate in a way that I've never been before. And in that compassion, there's an increasing sensitivity. And I've been really, really aware of what it means to merge myself into the community and how easy it is to merge myself in without using that critical mind, to relate heart to heart with those that I'm with. just a couple of days ago, I took my dear little dog, Coco, who's got kidney problems, into the vet because he was really sick. And I'm working with the assistant vet. And we had such a wonderful time together. And as she left the office, she turned around, she said, "I love you so much." That's merging yourself, in the heart of the community. It's so beautiful. I like to think also that when we are merging ourselves with the heart of one another, in the greater sense, we're merging ourselves with the Christ within, which means that we are in contact with the head of hierarchy, which is Christ. When we merge ourselves in the community like that, we cannot have a critical mind. We cannot worry whether he's got a great tie on or she has neat clothes on or whatever distracts us. There's no distraction. It's such a pure love, and that love only comes from the sphere of intuition. That intuitional level of consciousness is the only flow of pure love that we can experience is when it comes from the intuition. So in order to merge with the heart of humanity, we must first eliminate the false masks. We have created a lot of false masks for our personality to survive. But these masks cover the beauty of our soul. Remember the title that Rumi called his poem, "The Soul and Its Treasures." The soul and its treasures. So we have to get rid of, remove, eradicate, eliminate these false masks. So our soul is light. The beauty of our soul is light. The beauty of our soul is love. And the beauty of our soul is beauty. Light and love and beauty. When we experience moments of pure expression of the soul is when we experience freedom. Freedom from our differences, freedom from our limitations, freedom from the critical mind, freedom from vanity and ego and health problems and difficulties and pain and suffering. It's such a beautiful moment. And I think this momentous experience is what puts us on the path. It's when we recognize that, there's something beyond this world. There's something beyond, making sure that my bank account isn't under deposited and that flat tire that I met this morning when I went to work is not, going to ruin my entire day. And when we have this moment of pure soul, light and love and beauty, nothing can take it away from us. We want more of it, more of it, more of it, and we're hungry for it. And therein is the chalice. The chalice, Dan Anton, who is the director of the museum for so many years, in this issue of Agni Yoga Quarterly that's just about ready to be published, he says the chalice is the teaching. So that's where our soul is directing us, is pulling us, is to the chalice or the teaching. I know the chalice means many other things, but I really liked what he said when he said the chalice is the teaching. Well, he means that everything held in the chalice is a reflection of the teaching. It is the teaching. So these false masks, they are many, and they require transformation. However, once we transform these masks with the treasures of our soul, we transform these masks with the treasures of our soul, then we serve others without the thought of the lower self. We learn about one of these treasures called joy. Transformation. What is transformation? It is our understanding that transformation is a very integral part up to a certain point, of practicing Agni Yoga, of being a practitioner. We cannot be a practitioner of Agni Yoga if we're not on this path of transformation. We just cannot. So, transformation means change, right? So if we look in hindsight at our lives 2 years or 5 or 10 or 15 or 50 years in the past, if we're still the same person, we've not undergone the process of transformation. If we want to eradicate our false masks, we must undergo a transformational process. And this is very scientific. It's very real. It's not pretending that you're different. It's really recognizing that you are different, and this is how it's done. According to the teaching and according to experience, it is where the higher ethers, like the intuitional body, like the higher mind, replace 50% of the lower ethers. That's transformation. The higher ethers begin to regenerate, recirculate, going from to the higher frequency to the lower frequency, and over time, through striving, we undergo transformation. So now 50% of us contains and is expressing and presenting 50% of what the substance of the higher bodies are. Our dense body absorbs this etheric substance and then discharges more of the old physical atoms. Those atoms which we bring in incarnation after incarnation. So our physical body becomes more etheric and more powerful and more beautiful. This is the process of transformation. So eventually, our body, our whole personality will be an exact reflection of the true self, just like the bodies of great masters are. So obviously, 50% is not going to make us a master. The next step beyond transformation is transfiguration. So, but right now, the majority of us are focused on not so much transfiguration, except that it's a vision for us to strive toward, but it is transformation. So when we see the body of a great master, what is so cool, what's so beautiful, when we think about the body of a master, we think of the pictures that we have seen, right? Okay, when you see the body of a master, it's not like those pictures. Those pictures are old. And these are the pictures that they said, okay, we'll let them see us in this body. But they can do anything with their body and make themselves look very old, very young, very decrepit, very healthy, very radiant, very dull, because they have what they call the Maya Varupa body. So they can recreate their body and present it to us in any way, shape, or form. Our job is to recognize them. And they just may walk right by us and we don't see them, but we'll feel them. If we've gone through that transformational process. Okay, moving on. Rumi writes, close both the eyes in your head. Close both the eyes in your head and find the inner eye. Open your arms if you want an embrace. Isn't that simple? Most of us are like this because we're protecting our personality, I guess. So open your arms if you want an embrace. Break the idol of clay and behold the radiance. This is so funny. Why get tied to a hag like this world and for such a price? And for the ration of 3 loaves, why think of the sword and knife? The inner eye is the wisdom and love of the greater self, the higher self, the master, the ashram, that cyclically inspires our human soul. Like today, if we can align ourselves with the energy of the master or the teacher or the ashram that resonates with our heart, we're going to feel that outpouring love, the wisdom, and be inspired. We know that we can't handle 24 hours of it, not yet. Think about that. It's like when people walk into a group or they see a painting of Nicholas Rourke. Some of them will be repelled by the energy of the group. They'll be repelled by Nicholas Rourke's paintings. Because there's nothing in their consciousness yet that's receptive. But then those are the others of us that are crazy. You know? It's like, the first time I ever walked into the Nicholas Rourke Museum, I nearly melted. It was so incredibly magnificent, and the resonance and the beauty of the painting and just the energy and knowing the history that you're walking into in that Nicholas Rourke Museum. There's nothing like it. And you're transported into another world. Well, Daniel said one day, he said, you can't believe the people that come here on Sunday afternoon just to hear a concert, and they say, wow, what a nice chair. They're totally ignorant of these master paintings hanging on the wall, or the energy. So today, the day of the master, let us keep our sensitivity so we can feel that outpouring of love and its effect. As we grow into adulthood, we become too easily distracted by the coarse world without realizing it, becoming tied to the world of dense matter. As Rumi calls it, the hag of this world. He is saying our purpose in life is to serve the good, the beautiful in others. But in so doing, do not lust for that which will close your inner eye. See, there's so much in here to think about. So we have to consider, what is it that closes our inner eye? You know, it takes courage to face that. In other words, things which will separate us from the beauty of the paintings of Nicholas Rourke, from the beauty of a master, from the beauty of a true Agni yogi. What is it that separates us from the recognition and experience of such beauty? It is those things which we attach ourselves to, and we become them. Like we become our car, we become our pain, we become our suffering, we become our bank account, we become our losses. And pretty soon it's like the what was beautiful begins to narrow and become smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until we've identified with this old hag of a planet. Oh God, I shouldn't say that. We love our planet. If an environmentalist is listening to this, I'll be crucified. So we love our planet. I'm not going to go any further. I'll get into more trouble. We have to recognize the beauty to keep the beauty in front of us. And as long as we experience and love beauty and create more beauty and respect beauty, then our inner eye will not close to light and love and beauty and freedom. So attaching ourselves. Every time we desire something, we build the forms of that desire around us. They follow us. These forms follow us day and night, affecting our thinking, our emotions, our actions. But we don't recognize it. We can't see it. However, when you learn to enter into the astral plane, you can see all the forms of your desires hanging around you. It's horrifying. It's like, I'm never going to get through this talk. Oh, we have all afternoon. It reminds me of many years ago, I had attended an astrology conference in New Orleans, and we had an afternoon off, and so I wanted to go into the French Quarter. I'll never go back there again. You walk into that French Quarter and you see the astral plane. You're going to see you are immersed in the astral plane. The astral plane has manifested itself into this French Quarter, and you see entities that are walking with these desires that are clinging to them. They're living it. I've never been so shocked in my life. It was so ugly. And there's all kinds of occult shops in there with voodoo dolls. You know, the doors are open. Come in. No. So if you've never been to the astral plane, at least not yet, and you want to go visit the French Quarter in New Orleans, you'll know what it's about. These desires stay with us from one life to the next and the next, creating hell-like conditions for us. Why hell-like conditions? Because they are not in harmony with our soul. And the various desires among themselves are in conflict. And this is interesting. These desires are in conflict with one another. I want this, no, I want that. No, I want this, no. They're in conflict with each other. They have conflicting existences, and we cannot harmonize them, nor can we destroy them until they exhaust the energy with which we built them. This is why Helena Rourke so simply says, take your 3 worst habits and start working on them. We have to exhaust the energy with which we built these desires, these habits. Of course, the ugliest desires are those related to greed and exaggerated pleasure, money, sex, alcohol and drugs, possessions, crimes, and positions. Sometimes people who know how to travel into the astral world will enter there and help those who have died and who are still living their lives through their desires. They will awaken these souls so that they can move forward. Their desires are so strong that they do not even know they have died. Especially those who have died suddenly. Rumi said, "And for a ration of 3 loaves, why think of the sword and knife?" He is admonishing us for selling our soul for the earthly life. He is also saying, why are you acting in criminal ways just for 3 loaves of bread, when all you need to do is to open your inner eye? Do not harm others to save yourself. Rumi said, at night the beloved always returns, so take no opium tonight. Rumi is saying here, don't dope yourself with drugs or alcohol, or even too much food. This is why we're told, eat before the sun goes down. If you're going to have wine, cut it in half with water and don't drink it after the sun goes down. Rumi is saying so in a more poetic way. So don't eat too much food, for to do so you will not be conscious of meetings going on in the higher planes. You're dead to the world. And you wake up and you're like, God, I feel like I've, just went to sleep last night. Don't miss out. The beloved can also be understood as Christ as well as God. Rumi wrote, close your mouth to food and know another taste. He is telling us to reject the earthly desires. See how simple this is? Reject the earthly desires in order to taste the nourishment of the beloved, the Most High. When we taste the nourishment of the Most High, it is then we taste the treasures of the soul, for these are treasures of the spirit. Rumi wrote, the cup-bearer is no tyrant. His gathering is a circle. Come into the circle, he says. Sit down beyond the turning of time. Beyond the turning of time. Here is the bargain. Give 1 life and receive 100. Let me repeat this. Rumi says the cup-bearer is no tyrant. His gathering is a circle. Come into the circle. Sit down beyond the turning of time. Here is the bargain. Give 1 life and receive 100. A cup-bearer was considered a spiritual leader, one who is offering the spiritual life to those of us who are searching for the love and beauty of God. The soul is a pathway to God. And for those of you that may not know this, the cupbearer is referenced in several places in the Bible, such as Kings and Nehemiah and Genesis. The cupbearer nourishes others, so they in turn can also nourish yet others with their light. See, merging into the community. What a community to merge ourselves into a community of light. Until a gathering of disciples occurs. Light bearers are those who take their light out into the world for the Lord of the world. We must gather around the cupbearer, the teachings, in order to transform all that is not made of light, before we can take the pure light out into the world. Rumi says, stop behaving like dogs and experience the shepherd's cure. You complain to someone who took what you had. Who took what I had? Well, forget him for the presence of him. Think of nothing but the source of thought. See, particularly as we get older, not when we're young, little, beautiful children that smiles and we love everybody and everything, but after, we are introduced to this hag of the world. I know, I love that word. We begin to dwell on what we've lost. We begin to dwell on what our enemies have accused us of. The malice, the slander that they have spread about us. And pretty soon, see, our circle begins to narrow and narrow and narrow. Forget it. Forget those experiences. Let it go. Forget them for the presence of Him. Think of nothing but the source. Our source, which is the teaching, the great ones, the masters, and even beyond. Can we even imagine great beings beyond the master? The lords of Shambhala, Sanat Kumara. Rumi says the care of the soul is more than your hunger for bread. This is a reminder that we must take care of our soul. Most are more concerned about their hunger, about their desires, about their anger, their agitation, and so forth. It's actually ironic. If we first take care of the soul, then we are told that our earthly needs are provided. First, take care of the soul. What does it mean to take care of the soul? In the ancient mystery schools, it is mentioned that human beings, produced by their virtues, angels, which is only a metaphor. It is not that human beings produced angels by their virtues, but that their virtues lifted their souls to the angels. Simply said, I'm going to give a list of these virtues, which we have well studied them. They're in the book Psyche and Psychism, but give me a second here. So simply said, to care for our soul is to live a life of virtue and principle, plain and simple. Well, maybe not so simple, but very plain. Beauty, goodness, righteousness, joy, freedom, striving, sacrificial service. These are the foundations of those who want it, the foundation of those who want to care and nurture their soul. Where there are many virtues, yet there are certain core virtues which we can use as the building blocks for living. So here's the list. Striving, courage, daring, discrimination, solemnity, harmlessness, service, compassion, patience, fearlessness, gratitude, responsibility. And then we're told that there are three more advanced virtues, and these virtues are made of the substance of fire: enthusiasm, sacrifice, and nobility. So virtues, this is a quote from Psyche and Psychism, virtues are the manifestation of intuitional, atmic, and monadic energies. Intuitional, atmic, and monadic energies. When these energies find expression in our soul, they turn into virtues. So virtues are electrical lines that put us in contact with the higher spheres of life. As we begin to express these 15 virtues, we are building pathways to the spiritual triad and beyond. If we meditate on these virtues, we will key in with the higher planes and draw energy from them. See how simple it is? If we are focused and concentrated. The transformation of the personality is the result of incoming energies of the higher planes, releasing our soul from its prison. So Rumi says, why in this wide world do you sleep in a prison? The prison for the soul is the three lower bodies of the soul: physical, emotional, and lower mental worlds. The soul has lived in these worlds for so long that it has lost its contact with the higher, more subtle realms. It is for this reason that we need the cup-bearer, the teacher, and the teachings to awaken our soul from its prison. Once we are awakened, we become aware of this true self, and then the all-self. And in this process of awakening, we become aware of our immortality, the immortality of the soul. Rumi said, avoid complicated thinking, that the explanation is in the higher worlds. Well, when you speak simply, people think you're a simple person. The more complex your language and the more complex your vocabulary, people think, there's an intelligent human being. And we may not know what they're saying, but they've got to be intelligent because they're using big words, and I don't know what that big word means. This poem is simply put. And we could talk all afternoon about its meaning. So Rumi says, avoid complicated thinking. The explanation is in the higher worlds. We do not really think until we lift the soul up into the higher mind. Until then, we are the result of the thinking of others. I see, I don't mean to be disrespectful to any of us, but I see this in my dogs. The best education I can get, I have 4 dogs. And over time, I have seen like one of them, little Coco, imitates every bad habit of the other 3 dogs. Now, the one dog that I considered very bright, very intelligent, very independent, he's starting to imitate Maggie, which is she's about this big and she thinks she rules everybody and everything, and now the big dog is starting to imitate. So until we lift our soul up into the higher mind, we're the result of the thinking of others. Also of the elementals of the physical, emotional, and mental bodies. It is for this reason that Pythagoras required his students to take a vow of silence for 5 years in order to avoid complicated thinking. It is through the voice of silence that we are tuned to the chalice, and later to the projected beam of thought from the higher worlds, which leads the steps of the soul from the world of chaos to the world of beauty. Rumi wrote, limit your talk for the sake of eternal communication. Limit your talk for the sake of eternal communication. This is a story that's pretty well known. We are told that Socrates was once invited to a wedding party. The wedding was going to be held in a neighborhood village. So Socrates took his servant with him, and they set off for the village. It was evening when they were going through a mountain pass. Socrates slowed his pace, and he sat down on a rock. The servant, thinking that Socrates was taking a little rest, he waited a few feet away. After resting a few minutes, Socrates told his servant, "Go ahead and proceed to the wedding." He was going to sit on the rock for a while and think. So the servant left him, and every once in a while would look back to see if his master was proceeding. Eventually, Socrates was alone in the darkness of night. The wedding party lasted until morning, but Socrates was absent. The servant hurried back early in the morning by the same path, and as he came near the rock, he saw Socrates still sitting, like a statue, in deep contemplation. The servant sat by the rock and waited. As the sun rose above the horizon, Socrates opened his eyes, smiled, stood up, and said, "Let us give thanks to the source of light, and let us go home." Socrates was a thinker. He carried the torch of wisdom throughout the ages, influencing creative minds all over the world, opening for them the path of goodness and truth and beauty and immortality. Rumi said, "Abandon life and the world and find the life of the world." Abandon life and the world and find the life of the world. We must forget ourselves to find our capital S self. The capital S self is the highest within us. The journey of the soul is to return to that self. Rumi is telling us we must abandon our preoccupation with the worldly life and awaken as a soul. Once we awaken our soul, we will find the purpose of life and our life purpose. When we find and live our life purpose, we will find the life of the world. Doesn't it make you want to go read more of Rumi? He's not really easy to understand. But what a great man he was.